and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, then a little introduction. This is a place to share stories, adventures, and everything I wish I had known before embarking on them. My name is Drina, and you're watching From Fiji to Here. Today's video is all about the tips and tricks of train travel in Europe. If you live in North America, like I do, planning a trip abroad means one of your biggest expenses, if not the biggest expense, is going to be the transportation to your destination. And although this is often unavoidable, there are ways to cut down on these costs and kind of work with the system. Seeing as we did a multi-country trip in the continent of Europe, there were additional transportation costs to take into consideration other than just the flight there as well as back, and that's how we get to this topic, trains. Europe's train system is incredibly efficient and intricate compared to what we're used to here in Canada. And as you dive into your trip planning, there's some things you're going to want to consider before just saying yes and booking a flight. Number 1, do you buy individual train tickets or a pass? The most common pass for non-EU citizens is through a company called Eurail. We'll get more into this as we get into the video. This is the company that we went with. But before jumping on board and buying a pass, you'll want to look at your itinerary and see if it's even worth the cost. For starters, do you have an itinerary, or are you planning on just winging it? Are you particular about which days you travel on, or do you have or want flexibility with when you leave the next city? How many countries are you planning on going to? And are all the countries covered under a Eurail pass? How often do you anticipate taking trains? Are you using trains as your main method of transportation? Also, are you staying outside of the cities or in the downtown core? And finally, how long are you going to be traveling for? These are all questions you'll want to ask yourself to figure out an approximate budget for your trip. Let's say you're only planning on going to 3 countries and staying in maybe 1 or 2 cities for an extended period of time. Then maybe it isn't worth it to get a pass, and you should go ahead and just book individual tickets. However, on the other hand, if you're planning on being on a train every couple of days, going to a new city, next country, that are all covered under Eurail, or if you plan on staying outside of the cities for accommodation and using local trains to get into the city daily, it might be worth it. For both my trip to Italy back in 2016, as well as the journey that we're in the middle of releasing videos for, we went with Eurail passes, which leads us into the discussion of which pass to get. So through answering the questions before, you've laid out a guideline template of where you're headed, at least which countries or cities you plan on going to, which are and aren't covered under Eurail. If you're planning on doing a lot of country hopping, going from one country to the next, you're probably going to want to consider a global pass. On the other hand, if you're planning on doing a lot of city hopping, staying in maybe 1 or 2, even 3 countries, it might make more sense to look at a 1 country pass option. There are multiple options for both types of passes, depending on the destinations as well as how long you plan on staying, and you can find out all about them on the Eurail website, which I'll leave the description box below. I personally have done both. For our 2 weeks in Italy, we went with the 1 country pass with the 5 days in 1 month, and for our 2.5 month trip, we ended up purchasing the 2-month global pass. A couple of things about both passes. First things first is the sooner you start browsing, the better. We ended up getting a deal for the Italy pass and paid for only 4 days, receiving the 5th one for free. And for the global pass, we saved over 400 Canadian dollars due to purchasing during their once-a-year global pass sale. That being said, be sure to read the fine print. You don't want to purchase too early, as there is a date by which you must activate your pass, which means you must have started your journey by that date. When we purchased the pass, it was 12 months from the date of purchase. So you have your pass, you've packed your bags, and you've made it to Europe. Now what? The first thing you want to do before taking your train is to head to a Eurail desk or travel agent or train ticket desk and have your pass activated. This is the official start date of your trip. You do not want to be caught on a train with your pass not activated, as it can be viewed as an invalid ticket with huge fines. Once you've done this, you want to familiarize yourself with which train companies are partnered with Eurail for the country that you're in. I used the Eurail Planner app for both trips and found it was the most helpful, as it would only show me the eligible trains or trips that I could take under my Eurail pass. So your pass is activated, you've used the planner to figure out which day and train you're headed on. Now you want to open up your booklet and fill in the information for the trip you're about to take. This has to be done with pen, so be certain of which train before filling it in. Often I would wait until I'm literally getting in line to go on the train. That way I didn't have to worry about losing a day from my pass. Two exceptions to that are if you are heading on a high-speed train or a night train. Both of these often require a reservation even though you have a Eurail pass. That being said, the reservation cost is discounted with your Eurail pass, so you're not paying the full price. You can either book these online for most countries or at the train station ticket desk. If you're traveling during high season, you're going to want to book most of these in advance as they fill up fast. We didn't, which is how we ended up losing money and time in some countries, such as Switzerland, Czech Republic, and Spain.
Hey, Sierra. Where's your seat?
A lot of the time, in person, the attendants can only book for the countries that border the country you're in. So, for example, you wouldn't be able to book a train from Switzerland to the Czech Republic while you're in France. Most other train types, such as local, regionals, etc., you can hop on without an additional ticket. But be sure to have your ID as well as your rail pass filled out and ready to show the train attendant when they do the ticket checks. To end off this video, we're going to go a little more in depth with night trains. Are they really as bad as they sound? When booking a night train, it's often in exchange for gaining additional sightseeing opportunities and exploring time, as well as cutting out the cost of an additional accommodation, as well as transportation. The first decision, once you've decided that this trade-off is something you're willing to make, is when you book your reservation. Most commonly, there are 3 types of seat tickets that you can choose from: a sleeper cart, a couchette, or a seat. Starting at the highest priced one, a sleeper cart normally sleeps anywhere from 1 to 3 people, and you receive a pre-made bed with sheets, a blanket, pillow, etc. Often the amenities can vary per train company, however ours included a small breakfast, water, slippers, and even had a washroom with a shower in it. As can be expected, these carts are often the priciest and are gender specific, so should you be traveling as a mixed-sex couple, you would have to pay the premium price of a private sleeper cart to be together. Option number 2 is a couchette. Now, a couchette normally contains 4 to 6 beds in a bunk bed style pattern that give you a pillow, clean sheets, and a blanket, and when making your reservation, you can choose whether to have the top, middle, or bottom bunk. It's a more affordable option when traveling on a budget and often a decent night's sleep. The final and cheapest option is to solely reserve a seat as you would on a day train and just hope that no one else will be in your cart or that you will find some empty seats to spread across and hopefully get some shut-eye. Although not the ideal option, sometimes, as we found on our way to Portugal, it is the only option. Whatever option you choose, here are 5 ways to make the journey a little more enjoyable. Number 1, bring an eye mask and earplugs. There is not a lot in your control when you're on a night train, but sometimes the windows don't have curtains or blinds, and it'd be nice to be able to close your eyes and sleep in the dark. Also, the noise can kind of get to you after an extended period of time, so it's nice to have earphones to listen to music or just put some earplugs in to tune it out. Number 2, lock your bags. Now, we can't be oblivious to the fact that there are safety concerns when taking a night train, one of them being the safety of your belongings. How can you sleep knowing that there's strangers in the bunk below you that could take your stuff? So I always suggest that A, lock up your bags, and B, keep your valuables on you. Sleep with either a bum bag across your chest, or I would always put my laptop kind of under my pillow. Sometimes I put my bags kind of against the wall and myself. This is why I prefer the top bunks. Just kind of take the measures that you think you need to in order to get some shut-eye. Number 3, bring lots of food and water. I don't know if this was just the length of the trains that we were on, but we varied from an 8-hour night train to I think up to a 14-hour night train. And there aren't always food carts, especially after a certain hour. So we'd like to stock up on food and water before getting on the train. That way you have them if it is super hot and you're going to go through 2 liters of water, or if you're starving as soon as you wake up in the morning. You have those readily available for you. Number 4, charge all your devices beforehand. This is super handy if you are going to use it for listening to music, or if you can't sleep, so you're going to browse on your phone for the rest of the trip, or to set an alarm so that you don't miss your stop in the morning because they won't wake you up. We would try to get to the train station at least an hour early and find an outlet to kind of plug everything in and get it charged up before going. And final tip, number 5, pack a change of clothes and toiletries so that they're easily accessible. Night trains aren't ideal, but you can make them a little better by having easy access to your toothbrush so that when you wake up in the morning, you can feel a little more like you didn't just roll out of bed. A change of clothes is also super helpful, whether it's super cold on your train or it gets super warm and you sweat through your clothes. These are just some ways to make it a little more bearable. An additional little bonus tip is just if you happen to find yourself in a seating cart alone, there's often hidden gems such as these seats, I'll insert a picture here, that can slide down from this position into almost like a futon type mattress meeting in the middle, which we would have had no idea about if we hadn't been fiddling with the seats. So be really sure to check out your space, see what you're working with, and try and make the best of the situation. If you have any additional questions that I didn't get to answering, feel free to leave them down below, as well as any videos you'd be interested in seeing. Also, if you like this video, be sure to give it that thumbs up and hit the subscribe button to be notified of more like it, as well as to join me on my future journeys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next destination. Bye, guys!
What's happening?
We got a really fancy car or a cheap second-class car.
We asked for a couche, and we're getting on a sleeping car. Yeah, with a guy showing us how to get to our room.